I got a question for you. Have you ever gone on a run before? Because if you have, and you're like me, on most runs, at some point, you hit a wall. Right? When you just feel tired, and not just physically, but mentally, and your thoughts start running through your head, like, why am I doing this? I could be at home eating Cheez-Its and drinking pop, RC Cola. It's my favorite. Right? And watching Netflix. I could be doing these things. So why am I out here on this terrible run on this hot day? But what I'm going to say to you is that choosing to reject these thoughts and to push through that wall is what separates good runners from great runners. Right? Nobody was ever remembered because they thought, hey, I could be doing something really nice right now. I could be watching Netflix. And then they did it. Right? Nobody's remembered because that's what they did. They remembered because they pushed through that pain. They pushed through that hardship, and they kept going, right, to win the prize at the end. And so if we're thinking about heroes, every hero that I know chooses at some point to push through that wall. But I think that it's the real heroes that push through that wall by recognizing their own weaknesses and depending on someone greater than them, right? And this is called endurance. And I know that the Christian life requires so much endurance. And these two people sitting next to me, I believe, have shown what true endurance is and how it's never accomplished just on your own. And that's why they're my heroes. Okay? So, directly to my left, this is Josiah. This is Josiah Johnson. Josiah is one of my oldest and dearest friends. We grew up here in Fairmont together, met at Bethel Church. Josiah knows me better than most people in this world. And he calls me to endure, even when I go through hard times. And to his left, this is Lauren, formerly Lauren Decker, but now Lauren Johnson. Because these two just got married July 11th. Right? This was like 15 days ago? 15 days ago. And it was so exciting. I was at their wedding in California. It was an amazing, amazing thing. But this is Josiah's wife and real best friend, Lauren Decker Johnson. And I don't know Lauren as well as I wish I did. Right? But what I do know is that Lauren is the sweetest and most caring person, and that she loves my friend Josiah really, really well. And so they've been through a lot together, right? And I think that they've exemplified what it means to endure in this life, right? Endure it in this walk with Jesus. And so I want to ask them a few questions and then just let them talk to you guys about, what that's looked like for them. Just so maybe you can be encouraged as you go through hard times, right? And what we can do in light of that. So Josiah, there was something big because you moved away after our freshman year of high school, right? Moved to Colorado. But there was something really big that happened when you were a senior in high school, right before senior year, and it affected you physically and mentally, and it also affected your relationship with Lauren. Can you just, you don't have to talk about everything, but could you just talk a little bit about what that was and how it affected you?
Totally. Hello, Bethel Youth Group. I know. It's cool to be a part of this, as Peter and I were a part of the youth group for many years. So Peter's referring to 2015. I had a pretty serious medical problem. I had a tumor in my jaw, and basically needed to have about a 10-hour surgery to correct that issue. And then the surgeons made some mistakes, and it turned into about a 17-hour surgery. And in a very literal way, my body needed to endure and put up with a lot of a lot of trauma, and in that whole experience, during the surgery, actually, I woke up after the original surgery, and in about an hour, we realized that I was not able to breathe properly, and that the surgeons had made a mistake. And then I had to go back into surgery, and I was awake during part of an emergency surgery. So, a lot of trauma to my body and a lot of trauma to my brain to be like not put under during.
It's Tucker, everybody.
Tucker endures as well. Just goes.
That's true.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of brokenness there, and a really hard surgery, and a lot of medical complications, and then I had to have a bunch of, I think, 5 or 6 reconstructive surgeries. So during that time, I felt like I was really, really broken down. And one thing I do want to mention is that it became very clear over that 1.5 or 2 years of repeated surgery that endurance was what was needed. If I was going to make it through, I needed to be able to endure. And I found that especially 2 things were helpful. Honesty with friends and honesty with God. I saw my prayer life change pretty dramatically. And I grew up very comfortably, and it was like a prayer would just be like, hey, what's up, God? I'd really like a new Trek bike. And then I wasn't asking God for anything. I just told him, and then I was like, I'm going to save up my pit bro money and buy a bike.
Yeah.
And like, there was no reliance on God, and I'm learning that that's not how it should be. And so often my prayer life would look like, oh, I have no idea what's going on or what I need to do, but this is really hard. And God, please surround me with people that have more wisdom than me and are able to help me endure. And I also had to have those conversations with people like Peter and my brother Andrew, various other people that were close to me, because I do agree with Peter. I don't think that endurance is something that is sustainable on our own. There are people that might have like the mental capacity to push themselves, but we can't do that forever. We need to have partners. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Man, and something I want to say from that too, just walking through that with Josiah a little bit, was just because we talk about endurance and we talk about how it's something we should strive for, and that I think Josiah and Lauren have really shown that well. I don't want to give you guys the impression that it was perfect. There was pretty dark days, even in Josiah and I's friendship. Just the ways that the trauma that he went through with the surgery affected his mental framework really a lot, and he's really had a...
I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, you should have mentioned that, but it's okay.
I pretty quickly after the surgery, because being awake during this emergency surgery, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and it pretty significantly, what's even the word? It didn't destroy, but it like removed most of my long and short-term memory, and so I had to write everything down to remember anything.
Yeah. So during that time,
whatever.
It's pretty casual. Josiah had PTSD, right? You might have heard PTSD because of like military veterans or some, people who have been in really traumatic or stressful situations. Like they've seen people die right next to them. They've been in these terrible, terrible things, and then your brain just kind of starts attacking you, and your memory starts going weird. And during that time, I remember having a phone call with Josiah, and he said, Peter, I know that we're supposed to be best friends, but I can honestly say that I just don't really know who you are. Like, I don't really remember you, And that was a really, really hard conversation. I remember it was right out there, standing by the garage, and that was hard. And there was times when Josiah was just really wrestling with his faith and really questioning everything, and it felt more of it was a struggle, and it wasn't just of course, like we're just enduring, you know, we're just having a good time, and it's hard, yeah, but we're gonna get through it. I mean, there was times when we didn't know, you know, what the future was gonna hold, and so I don't want to give you guys the impression that any of us have this like magical carpet ride to like faithful endurance. It's just not. A lot of times not like that, right? But that's okay, because God is in the midst of all of it. I just want to say that. So Lauren, at one point, after Josiah's surgery, and because you guys met like 2 years later, at Biola University in California, outside of Los Angeles, and you had started dating, right? But because of this PTSD stuff, because of things that were affecting Josiah, you broke up.
Yeah.
And
We had a very similar, that moment that Peter just talked about where Josiah said, I don't feel like I know you. I know we have this history, but right now it doesn't feel like I know who you are. As we were dating, that would happen. Like we would sit down for breakfast in the morning, and Josiah would say, I know I like you, and I know that we're together for a reason, but I can't feel that today. It was a very bizarre first relationship. The sweetest in some aspects and the weirdest in others. And it became pretty clear after a short amount of time that even though this was one of the most amazing men that I had ever met, it just wasn't, the timing wasn't right, and Josiah needed to seek out help, and doing that in a relationship wasn't the right choice, and so we broke up. And it was really hard. I think sometimes it's a tendency that I've seen in a lot of people to compare pain. So it might seem easy to say, that person's been through much worse. You hear Josiah's story.
Yeah.
Josiah almost died, and he couldn't remember people, and his life was, in the course of a day, turned upside down. And I just, XYZ, or my life is just not as bad. My pain is not as legitimate. I think that's something to be very mindful of as you grieve and as you endure and as you process. How am I talking to myself? How do I discuss my pain? Do I give it legitimacy and validity, or do I tell myself that it's not as important as someone else? It's interesting, we didn't talk about this before we started filming, but my advice for endurance is very similar to Josiah's. And this is kind of the mantra that I tried to live my life by during that season where we were not together. Two things. I'm not going to do this alone, and I'm going to do this honestly. So I'm going to do this in community, and I'm going to do this honestly. So that first point, we weren't meant to live this life in isolation. If you think that you can walk through life and carry the weight of everything that happens to you on your own shoulders, you're so wrong. And you'll find that out very quickly. You need people who know you and love you and are for you. Both of us experienced that very profoundly in college, that we were made for each other. And it's such a joy and a privilege to be that in someone else's life at their lowest moment. And so on my hard days, I was surrounded by, I would say, mostly women who said, Lauren, we love you. And even when you can't really hold yourself up, we're going to hold you up. We're going to walk with you to the class you have with Josiah every Tuesday and Thursday, and we're going to get you through that. And we're going to talk to you on the phone. And we're going to have dinner with you after. We're going to pray with you, and we're going to pray for you. That was really important. The second thing is that if I could communicate anything to you in the wake of hardship or endurance, is that God knows you, and he's not afraid of anything that you're feeling. Nothing is shocking to him. None of the emotions that you're processing through, the questions that you're processing through, surprise him. And I would have 50, not just one prayer at the beginning of the day and one at the end, but I would have 50 to 100 little conversations with the Lord throughout my day. just touching base and saying, this is how I feel right now. I feel a little afraid, or I just saw Josiah and my heart dropped to the pit of my stomach, or whatever the case may be. And we just walk through our day slowly, and we walk through our day together, me and the Lord. And I brought my honest, rawest self to him. And I saw the way he tenderly and kindly loved me in that place. And on that note, the book of Psalms was really impactful for me during that time. Because you see the authors of these poems and these songs writing from a very raw and honest place. And so you can skip through this book and you can see these psalms of adoration and joy and life is good, and then you can flip the page and the next one is like the depths of despair and God, where are you? And it feels like you're leaving me and you're failing me. And it's all here, and it's all the divine word, and all of it is welcome. Just bring your honest self to the Lord. And so I would sit in hard moments and I would read these psalms, and there's one that we just were reading this morning that I felt like so honestly captured this idea. It's at the very end of Psalm 40, from verse 16 to 17. It says, "May all who seek you rejoice and be glad in you. May those who love your salvation say continually, great is the Lord. As for me, I am poor and needy, but the Lord takes thought for me. You are my help and my deliverer. Do not delay, oh my God." So whether you're in that place of, God's great, I'm doing awesome, life is good, or you're not there, you're welcome at the table. You have a place at the table. I think that's very important to hear. And the last thing I want to say is that I'm sitting in a place, it feels like I'm almost sitting in a privileged place where now we're married, and I know how that season ends. And it all turned out great, but I didn't know that at the time. We were actually having a conversation about this because Peter kind of recently preached on what do we do in the seasons of uncertainty. I had no idea that Josiah and I would get back together. I had no idea that we would be married. That idea, if you would have told me that, would have sounded very bizarre. And I suppose the reason I'm telling you this is that God sees your faithfulness in the moments where things feel very clear, but it's better exemplified in the seasons where you don't know what's coming next, when you have questions and doubts and you show up anyway to youth group, and you show up anyway to church on Sunday, and you sit there and you worship, even if you don't feel it in your heart, or even if you just came from a really hard day at school and you're not in the mood, you come anyway and you show up and you say, God, I'm here for you. You've been faithful to me. I will be faithful to you. Even though I don't know how this story ends, even though I don't know what's next, I can know who you are.
Oh my word. Guys, you need to get friends like this. Man, I've just been blown away in the last few weeks of just the people that God has just blessed me with to be in my life. It's taken work, it's taken hard work and difficult times, but I'm so grateful. Thank you guys for sharing. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like that really, really captured, just your life and your experiences really well, and packaged it in a way that was understandable. Two things that come to my mind as they were talking, right? Lauren just talked about showing up, right? Even when things are hard. I think sometimes we get this idea in Christianity that, our faith in God and our relationship with Him is all based on how we feel about it. How are you doing with God? Well, I feel pretty good about it. I feel like I'm doing well, and so maybe He loves me today, or maybe not. But man, let me just share. There's a quote I heard. A guy was at a conference, and this guy said, sometimes the most spiritually faithful things you can do is to go through the motions of spiritual faithfulness. Right? We need to hear that more. Right? It's not just, well, you need to be a rock star Christian, and you need to be like sharing your faith every day, and you need to be, and if you're not, then you're not really doing it right. You know, sometimes the most spiritually faithful things you can do, right? And the things that are about endurance, right? Is just going through the motions. Like, God's going to take care of the rest, right? If we're just obedient to Him, I'm convinced that He's going to take our emotions and He's going to bring them to a different place. And the second thing is just this idea of community, you know, living this life together with people. And that's what I want for Bethel Youth. That's what I want for our youth group. I want it to be a place where we can really, like Lauren said, come to the table, no matter how we're feeling, no matter how we're doing. Because I know there's some hard things going on, right? I know in some of your lives there's some really, really hard things going on. And so I don't want us to feel as though we can't share that we can't be open and honest about that. I want us to do that and to be a place where that happens, because that's where we see God working so clearly. You know, we see Him speaking through other people. We see Him encouraging us in ways that we never could have imagined. And that's where endurance is found. It's not on your own, right? And it's in our weaknesses, right, where God is so much stronger. And we see that clearly. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you all. Appreciate these two and their time. Hope you guys have an awesome week. See ya.